Tzomoil. When I say a easy fast, we say Tzomoil. What does that mean? Tzomoil. Meaningful. Tzomoil, meaningful fast. The Shir Le'ele Nishmas Tzvi Dov Ben Chaim Pesach. Move it on up. Le'ele Nishmato. William and Helen, Rochel Bas Yosef, David Ben Avraham, Le'ele Nishmatam, Fred Ben Richard, Le'ele Nishmatam. Why are we fasting today? Well, yes, I did. Tzvi Dov Ben Chaim Pesach. He heard it. Maybe you didn't, but he did definitely hear it. Okay. So why are we fasting today? The Talmud in Tainus gives a few reasons. The first reason was that today was the day when the Jews worshipped the golden calf, and Moshe broke the tablets, and it's all downhill since then. Unfortunately, it's been all. So the granddaddy of all sin took place today in the Chama, which was what? The golden calf discotheque, which was today, 3,328 years ago. And all the tsaris began only because of that. So that's why we're fasting. Also, the city walls were broken by the Romans 1947 years ago today. So why was the temple destroyed? The Talmud says the first temple, we committed the 3 cardinal sins, right? The second temple was destroyed because of sinat chinam. We didn't commit the 3 cardinal sins. We did sinat chinam. So the first temple, the Chorban was only 70 years, right? We came back and rebuilt. The second temple, it's 1947 years later, and we're still what? Mourning. The Talmud makes a very strange statement. You see that sinat chinam is worse than the 3 cardinal sins. Say what? The proof is in the pudding. The 3 cardinal sins, after 70 years, we what? Came back. And the second temple, it's 1947 years and counting, and still, and we didn't do the 3 cardinal sins. We did sinat chinam. So Talmud Yumanai makes a very bizarre statement. You see that sinat chinam is worse than the 3 cardinal sins. Now how could that be? So the Chafetz Chaim explains as follows. The 3 cardinal sins, who doesn't know adultery is wrong? Everybody knows it's wrong to commit adultery and worship Avodah Zarah. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. So after 70 years, Nechama, people, they realize they did an Aveira. So you do tshuva, Hashem forgives you. 70 years later, you come back from Babylon, Long Island, and you build a temple. But said the Chafetz Chaim, sinas chinam was worse, because you don't even know it's a sin. That Jew, it's a mitzvah to hate him. His kippah's wrong, or he has no kippah. It's self-perpetuating, says the Chafetz Chaim. You don't even realize it's a sin, because the Yetzer Hara tells you to hate that guy is no sin. It's a mitzvah, right? Wrong kippah, no kippah. So it keeps on going and going and going. So 1947 years later, we're still what? Because we still can't get rid of the hatred, because we figure it's not a sin. That's why, says Chafetz Chaim, it's so destructive, because it's not a sin. Now, what does sinas chinam mean? The English says what, Nechama? Baseless hatred? That's not what sinas chinam means. Rabbi Kessler, you know Hebrew. Sinas chinam means hatred for free. Let's get real. Ulpan 103, sinat chinam means free hatred. Say what? What does that mean? That's what it means, Sharona. English says causeless, baseless, doesn't mean that. No one is crazy enough to hate anybody for no reason. Could be a crazy reason. Even Abu Mamzer says he has a reason, right? There's no such thing as causeless hatred. You got to be really off the wall to hate somebody for no reason. So sinas chinam doesn't mean causeless hatred, because there ain't no such thing. It means hatred for free. What does that mean, Chava? You have a reason to hate the guy. He did dirty to you. But chinam, I get nothing in return. What do I get back by hating the guy? What do I get? A bad hair day. Sinas chinam yechiel means, literally, hating a guy, letting a guy you can't stand live inside your head rent-free. Yeah. Think of it. Yeah. Chinam, that's what it means. You hate the guy. He did dirty to you. But by hating him, you're letting a guy you can't stand Masha, live inside your head rent-free. Why do you want to do that for? Esim Rachad, please. Esim Rachad. Toda Rabba. Toda Rabba. I don't want to fall asleep, you know.
It's hot.
Right? I don't want to fall asleep. Where was I? Yiddish Shirley. But I hate the guy. You're letting him live inside your headspace for free. Why? Evict him. How do you evict him? Stop hating him. Stop. You're not doing him a favor. You're doing yourself a favor. If you stop hating him, you're not allowing him to live inside your headspace for what? For free. How do you evict him? How do you stop hating him?
Forgive.
Evict him. Take him to lunch. I'm not joking. Why do... Anna, not today. Why do parents love their kids so much? Yechiel. Tell you a big secret. Came just there. Because the more you give, the more you invest in somebody, you cannot help but love the person that you invest in. Since parents are constantly giving and investing to their children, they love them because you're investing yourself in the child. So who are you really loving? Yourself. V'hafta ro'yacha kamocha. So that's the secret why parents love their kids so much. They're constantly giving, investing themselves. So it's human nature that they love because they put so much into the relationship. So how do you get rid of an enemy? Take him out to lunch. Or maybe dinner. Because if you invest in him and if you give to him, then human nature is that you'll stop hating him. You'll evict him. You won't allow him to live inside your head for what? Chinam. Invest in the relationship. You give, that's human nature. When you give, you can't help but what? Become attached to the person. Therefore, parents love their kids so much. Because who are you really loving? Your investment. V'hafta ro'yacha kamocha. Okay.
What happens, parents who give with regret?
Doesn't matter. Right? Nike, just do it. Nike, just do it. You don't like the guy, but you take him out to lunch and dinner, in the end, you'll start liking him because you're investing so much in him. Try it, you'll like it. You'll see that it'll work. Evict him.
Should we give our cousins?
I'm talking about Yidden, please. Rivka, I'm talking about Yidden. I'm not talking about Abu Mamzer. Please, don't mix me up. Don't mix me up. Now, where was I?
If you're doing this, you could be instant and be gone.
Okay, let's take a look at the topic that we have to do. The rabbi's humility destroyed the temple. Say what? I'm not hallucinating. I made copies, Mickey, so you can take a look. See side number one. Side number one on the bottom. There's a number one there. Number one on the bottom. Rav Sprecher ben Afkula's humility burned the sanctuary. Say what? The Talmud blames a great rabbi for the Churban. Now, sinas chinam was a symptom, but actually what was the catalyst? Bizarre that the Talmud blames this great rabbi on side number one, Nechama. It's Rav Sprecher ben Afkula's humility burned the temple. Now, how could that be? How could that be? We know that humility is what? A great trait, right? Humility is a great trait. Of Moshe Rabbeinu, of all the accolades, is that the right word, that God could say, the Ish Moshe Anav Ma'od. What's written on Moshe's tombstone? Rabbi, PhD, greatest Navi? No. Ish Moshe Anav Ma'od. That's on his tombstone. So humility is the greatest quality. So how could the Talmud say, because of this great rabbi's humility, his name was what? Sprecher ben Afkulis, the temple was burned? What are you talking about? How could that be? Humility is the greatest trait of all. So what's the answer? The answer is that people make a big mistake. They think that to be an anav means that you think you're a shmata. Moshe didn't know that he was the greatest Navi who ever lived. He didn't know that God spoke to him face to face. He gave us the Torah, split the Red Sea, gave us the man. He didn't know that. To think you're a nobody is a lie. Moshe knew that there was no greater Nabi than him. He wrote those words. The difference between anava versus gava, between humility and what? And arrogance is what? Person has great talents. So an arrogant person is, I have great talents, so I'm entitled to kavod, right? I have all these great talents. I'm a superstar, so therefore, bow down to me. But another, I know I have great talents. Moshe didn't kid himself. I know I have great talents. But how could I take credit? Those great talents were given to me by Kodesh Baruch Hu. Moshe knew he's not a doormat. Because if he was, how come he stood up to Korach? Right? His cousin says, I want to take over. He was a shmata. Okay, cousin, take over. Moshe, no, he fought him like a lion. Why? Moshe is a humble person. Why didn't he say to cousin Korach what? B'vakasha. No. Moshe knew he was the greatest man on the face of the earth. But so what? God gave me those talents. I have no right to be arrogant and stuck up. Because I have those great God-given talents, I have great obligations to serve Hashem. So the arrogant and the humble person both know they have great talents. But the arrogant person says, I did it. It's my doing. Right? Do it my way. So therefore, you owe me kavod. A humble person knows he's a great person, like Moshe Rabbeinu, but all the greatness and talents were given to me by what? By HaKadosh Baruch Hu. How could I take credit? Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky, Zeichat Tzal Yivrochim, our Shiva gave a beautiful example. He said, you remember a beautiful crystal Hungarian chandelier that sparkles, right? A giant chandelier. Does the chandelier take any credit for its sparkling? Why not? It's a beautiful sparkling chandelier, Hungarian with a lot of crystals. Does the Hungarian chandelier take any credit? Why not? It sparkles. He's nothing. The guy who turned on the switch. HaKadosh Baruch Hu turns on the switch. Why should I take any credit? So, let's explain this strange Gemara over here on side number 1. There's a number 1 on the bottom of the page. Rabbi Yochanan said, you see that? What does the verse mean? Happy is the man that is always afraid. He's worried. What do you mean? Ashrei Adam mefached tamid. A person is always afraid of his shadow. Is that the right way to go? He worries about, but who hardens his heart to fall into evil. So what does that mean? Now, anava, humility. Midot, in Hebrew, character traits are called midah. What does midah literally mean? Measure. Because we have to measure and weigh when to be an anav and when to take a firm stand. Like Moshe was an anav, but he took a firm stance against Dosam ve'Aviram, against Korach. He put them in their place literally, 6 feet under. And against Paroi, Moshe was no pushover, even though he's the most humble man on the face of the earth. Midah means you have to measure your character traits, when to be an anav and when to what? Saketu. Remember, saketumi. Now, so anyway, strange Gemara over here. Strange Gemara on side number 1. This is the Gemara in Gittin. If you turn over to side number 2, there you have it in English. Destruction of Jerusalem came through Kamsa and Bar Kamsa. Remember the story? A certain man had a friend called Kamsa and an enemy, Bar Kamsa. Right? He once made a party and said to a servant, go and bring Kamsa. The man went and what? And brought instead Bar Kamsa. Good help is hard to find. Right? Good help is hard to find. So Mashah said, what was the guy, a dummy? The servant didn't know that one guy was his best friend and the other guy was what? Worst enemy. So Mashah said, what does Kamsa mean and Bar Kamsa? It was father and son. Nechama, he wasn't that stupid. Okay, even though he got minimum wage. Kamsa and Bar Kamsa, Rabbi Kessler. It was Kamsa and the son of Kamsa. One was his enemy, and the son was his what? The best friend, or vice versa. I'm a little mixed up here, what? Father and son. They had the same address, Chava. The guy wasn't that dumb. The man went and he brought bar kamsa. So the best friend was what? The father. And his worst enemy was, what does bar kamsa mean? The son. So honest mistake, the same last name. They had the same apartment. You hear this? So what happened? When the man found them there, he said, right? What are you doing here? He made a great party in the great synagogue. Remember before they took apart the hall downstairs? It was a beautiful, the Fiedler Hall. Remember that? Rivka was beautiful there. He made a great party there, marrying off his daughter. And sind geschlecht geworden. How do you say in English, Rabbi Yaakov? Sind geschlecht geworden. He saw, he's gut geworden. He's gut geworden. He saw his worst enemy there. He says, get out of here. What the hell are you doing here? I can't stand your guts. So remember, the invitation came to what? To this bar kamsa. The father never got the invitation, right? Because the servant gave it to the son. An honest mistake. Same last name and same what address. He says, get out of here. So he said, listen, since I'm here, let me stay. Don't embarrass me. I'll pay for my portion. Was it 200 shekels a portion? I don't know. Was it 250 a portion? I don't know. Great synagogue. I'll pay for my portion. He says, get the hell out of here. I don't want you. He says, listen, don't embarrass me. I'll pay half the wedding. I'll write you a check for half the wedding. The guy said, no. Then he said, what? Listen, I don't want you to embarrass me. I'll write you a check for the whole wedding. Wow. You hear? He said no. He took him by the hand and he threw him out. You hear this? So what did Bar Kamsa say? Since the rabbis were sitting there and didn't what? And didn't do anything. You have everybody needs a paper? Everyone has one? And he didn't do anything. This shows that what? That the rabbis agreed. The rabbis were busy at the smorgasbord. A nice smorgasbord. And they saw this humiliation of this Jew. And humiliating somebody in public, ein lo chelik l'olam haba. It's like you spill his blood. You humiliate someone in public, you're like shofech damim, you have no share in the world to come. And the rabbis were busy at the buffet. It was a big buffet, you know, that pastrami, guy carving pastrami and, you know, hot and cold dishes. So the sounds of silence was deafening. The rabbi's sounds of silence was deafening. So he said, what? What? I'm going to go and inform against the Roman government. You hear this? You hear what he said? To the Roman government. I'm testing you, see if you're awake. Right? He went and said to the emperor, the Jews are rebelling against you. So, you know, he had influence with the Roman governor. He said, how can I tell? He said to them, send them an offering and see whether they will what? Offer it. He sent them a fine calf. Now, we accepted karbonos from pagans, right, Rabbi Yaakov? We accepted karbonos from pagans, right? Nothing wrong for a goy to bring a korban olah, b'vakasha. So he sent them a fine calf. While on the way, what did Bar Kamsa do, this lowlife, to get even? Hatred and vengeance. He made a blemish on the upper lip and also on the eye, in a place where we count it as a blemish, but the pagans do not. To us, it's a mum. Don't blemish your lips. What does that mean? Don't speak lashon hara. And don't blemish your eye. Put your eyeballs back in the socket. Sometimes it's hard when you're riding the light trail today. Some ladies are not dressed properly, so you have to put your eyeballs back in the socket. So it's got to walk around with blinders, you know, unfortunately. So anyway, don't blemish your lip. By us, to speak lashon hara is a blemish on the lip. And also, don't blemish your eyes. Make sure that you have self-control. For us, that's a blemish. For a non-Jew, they could look where they want. So the rabbis were inclined to offer it in order not to offend the Roman emperor. So Zechariah ben Avkulis, he said, what? No, we can't offer it because people will say that blemished animals are what? Offered on the altar. So then they said, let's kill the guy, because he's a rodef. What does a rodef mean? A pursuer. He's going to go and masa to the Roman emperor. He has a din like a rodef. And the halacha by rodef is, Rachmiel, habor lahargacha, haskem lahargo. Right? You have to kill him. He's a rodef. He's going to snitch to the Roman government. There'll be a pogrom. So you have to take him out. Right? So he should not go in the form. So the great rabbi said, no, we can't do that. They'll say one who makes a blemish on karbanot must be put to death. So they let this guy live. He went back to the Roman emperor. And what happened? What happened? Churban. Rabbi Yochanan remarked. Yehuda, can you read this in English? Rabbi Yochanan remarked.
The humility of Rav Sprecher, then Akulis destroyed our house, burned our sanctuary, and exiled us from our land.
Incredible statement. The Gemara Gittin 55b. The humility of Zechariah destroyed our house, burned our sanctuary. You call me, have that? And exiled us from our land. Because he was what? He was very humble. So, the Talmud blames the Chorban on the Zechariah ben Avkulis and also on Kamsa and Bar Kamsa. Also on Kamsa and Bar Kamsa. The problem is, what are you blaming Kamsa for? He wasn't even there. Remember the story? The invitation went to whom? Bar Kamsa. Kamsa wasn't even there, Chava. Why does the Talmud blame the father too? He wasn't even there. Why is he blamed?
Should have gone to the wedding.
Why?
He should have made shalom.
But he didn't get the invitation.
But he was his best friend.
Rab Moshe Feinstein, Zechat Tzaddik Yivracha, went to Rab Aaron Kotler Simcha uninvited. They had a falling out. You know, great rabbis, I don't know, Yetzer Hara there. Rab Moshe Feinstein and Rab Kotler had a falling out. So Rab Kotler married off a child, and Rab Moshe was not invited. And he came anyway. You know what he said? The invitation got lost in the mail. Can't be that Rav Aaron didn't invite me. Maybe the invitation was eaten by a dog. You know, the mailman put it in the wrong slot. He was done Rav Aaron Kotler to what? The Kafschus. He showed up anyway uninvited. My best friend makes a chasana, and I don't go. The invitation got lost in the mail. Maybe the cat took it, the dog took it. Surely we have to make excuses. We have to dan lekavschut, because if we dan others lekavschut, then the big boss will what? Dan meet the kavschut, because God acts with us midah keneged midah. So therefore the Talmud also blames Kamsa, even though he wasn't even there. He should have been there. And if he was there, he would have made shalom. My best friend and my son, hey guys, bury the hatchet, not in each other's back. So the Talmud blames him too, Nachman, because if Kamsa would have showed up, he wouldn't allow this. Leave my son alone. You're my best friend. Leave him alone. So he's blamed. You don't show up, your best friend makes a simcha. Avram, you have to say the invitation got lost in the mail, like Rabbi Moshe Feinstein and what? And Rabbi Aaron Kotler. And therefore what? He is blamed as well. Powerful message. Powerful message. What? It was in the Jerusalem Post. He put an ad, this big guy, he made a big simcha. Right? It was in the Torah Tidbits. It was advertised in the Torah Tidbits, right? A big macher makes a chassid in the great synagogue. It's known. What? They had a falling out. What else is new? What? He showed up anyway. People were surprised. He says, oh, the invitation got lost in the mail, and Rav Aaron was so happy to see him. Here's David. Now, where were we? Now, yes.
I don't understand the humility part.
Stay tuned. I'm not finished yet. Yes. What humility? What's going on? Okay, so look at the source number 2 on side number 2. Source number 2 on side number 2. Malka, you have that? Number two. Source number 2. This is from Tosefta Shabbat. This is a din of muktzah. You see how it comes. The din of muktzah. Bet Hillel says, one may remove bones and shells from the table on Shabbos. It's muktzah, but since it's what? Ma'us, it's going to take away from our Einik Shabbos, even though it's muktzah, you're allowed to take bones and shells off the table on Shabbos. That's how we paskin. Bet Shammai says, you cannot do it directly, you have to shake the table and shake it off. Okay? Because it's muktzah. We don't paskin like it. We paskin like Beis Hillel. You can take the bones and shells off the table on Shabbos, even though it's muktzah, because it's ma'us. How do you say it in English? Ma'us. Disgusting. It takes away from our Einik Shabbos. Don't play any games. But Shammai say you have to tilt the table and shake it on the carpet. But Shinui, we don't paskin like that. Zechariah ben Avkulis, he was a great chief rabbi at the time, did not act like Beit Shammai. He didn't act like Bet Hillel. Rather, he threw the bones behind the bed. Leave it there, the cat will get it. Rav Yossi said the humility of Zechariah burned the temple. Again, Gittin 55, Tosefta Shabbat, blames this great rabbi for copping out, for not taking a stand. I'm too humble to make a decision. Who am I to decide between Hillel and Shammai? Who am I to decide that this guy's a rodef to take him out? I'm such a humble guy. I'm a nobody. I can't decide. I'm a gurnished. You know the story, right? In the Varduk, they were known for being very humble. In the Varduk, the Shiva, very humble. So this guy, first day, right, comes to the Yeshiva, a bucher, a rookie, and the first day he says, Ich bin agunisht, I'm a nobody. So there's Bochrim there 24 years, and they say, look who's a nobody. You're already a nobody. Your first day in the Yeshiva, you're a nobody. Took me 24 years to realize that I'm a nobody. Schein agunisht. Look who's agunisht. 24 years I'm working on being agunisht. At least somebody got it. Rav Zechariah said, Ich bin a nobody. I can't decide such weighty questions. And their false humility. He freezes up. He can't act. False humility. Please hear me well. Please hear me well. In Parshas Noach, the Torah calls Noach Ish Tzadik Tamim. Not just a tzaddik. Nobody in the Chumash is called a tzaddik Tamim. Not even Moses. Check the text. Not even Yosef is in Tanakh. We're talking in the Chumash. There's only one person called Ish Tzadik Tamim. That's Noach. Noach found grace in the eyes of Hashem. Noach Ish Tzadik Tamim, perfect tzaddik. Rashi makes a bizarre statement, Shoshana. Noach Miktane Yamunah. Sharona, say what? Noach was small in Amunah. Rashi, take a pill and lie down. The Torah calls him Noach Ish Tzadik Tamim, perfect tzaddik. Noach Motzachein Beinei Hashem. How could Rashi dare say Noach Miktane Yamunah? Noach was a small believer. What does it mean? In himself, of course he believed in God. He's a perfect tzaddik. But Miktane Yamunah, he didn't believe in himself. I'm a nobody. I make a difference. God needs me. I'm nothing. I'm a dirtbag. Miktane Yamunah, in himself. We know Bishvili Nivra Olam. The Gemara in Sanhedrin 37 says, Bishvili Nivra Olam. The whole universe was created for whom? Me. For me. Not for Moses, for me. Bishvili Nivra Olam. And the first message to Paroi, B'ni B'chori Yisrael. The first message that God gives to Paroi, my son, my firstborn is Israel. Exodus 4. Yechiel, first message. A family can have 19 children, but they can only be what? One firstborn. So God says clearly in Exodus 4, Israel is not just my child, B'ni b'chayri Yisrael. Every Jew is to God like what? A b'chor. There can only be one firstborn. There can be only one firstborn. We are special and unique to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. God needs me. Remember that song, I'm a believer? Who sang that? I'm a believer. Believing in whom? In myself. That God needs me. Bishvili nivra olam. Not like Noach miktane yamunah. Noach couldn't believe in himself. God needs me? I'm a nobody, agonish. That's not Judaism. That's good for a goy. But Noach was a goy. B'ni b'chorvi Yisrael. No one can do it my way. I'm a believer in myself that I matter to God. And if I don't do it, nobody else can do it my way. Just like my fingerprints are what? Unique? My tafkid is unique, and no one can do my tafkid, not even Moshe Rabbeinu. There's a pasuk in Divrei Hayamim, chapter 2:13, about the great king Yehoshaphat. The Goyim say, jump in Jehoshaphat. Yehoshaphat, Melech Yehuda, a great tzaddik, says, Vayigba liboy bedarkei Hashem. Vayigba liboy bedarkei Hashem. His heart was raised up and haughty because he followed God's ways. Yehoshaphat, you're a great tzaddik, king of Yehuda. How could it be? See the bottom of the page, Yechiel? Divrei Hayamim, my handwriting. Divrei Hayamim, Bet Yuzayin, Yehoshaphat, Vayigba liboy bedarkei Hashem. His heart grew haughty because he followed in God's ways. That's a good type of gaiva. That's a good type of gaiva. You know, gaiva, it depends when to be about gaiva and when to be an anav. You have to know. You think you're unworthy to serve Hashem. Vayigba libo, his heart was raised up because he walked in the ways of Hashem. The Yetzer Hara uses humility to mislead you, to make you think you're unworthy to serve Hashem. This great rabbi, I can decide between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. I can decide these weighty issues. Ich bin agornisht. He copped out, and that's why the temple was destroyed, because he couldn't stand up. He freezed up. He couldn't act. That's a false humility. That's a Noach type of humility. Miktane emunah. Misguided humility can bring disaster on the Jewish people. V'ahavta re'acha kamocha. Love your friend like yourself. Says Rabbi Akiva, klal godel b'Torah. What does that mean? It's a great principle of the Torah. Rabbi Kessler, what's a great principle of the Torah? But the Torah says that. What's Rabbi Akiva adding? Are you sitting down for this? After Rachel Kamocha, love your friend as yourself, says Rabbi Akiva, Zeh klal godel b'Torah. What's Rabbi Akiva adding? Kamocha. You have to love yourself. If you don't love yourself, you don't appreciate yourself, you're ketane yamunah, you can't love your friend. Chayecha koidmin l'chayeh chavercha. Whose life comes first? That's Rabbi Akiva's klal godel b'Torah. Love your friend, but don't forget kamocha. You have to love yourself, appreciate yourself. Then no one can do it my way. Noach, Sprecher, they copped out. Tane Yamuna. They didn't believe in themselves. So Noach, you saw what happened. He got washed out with the flood. And Sprecher ben Avkulis, I have to believe in myself. Now, please hear me well. Chavi, you're sitting down. Avram Avinu, Bishvili nivra olam. But he also said, Noiche ofer ve'efer. He also said, I'm dust but ashes. Benjamin, make up your mind. The whole universe was created only what? for me. And then Abraham said, Anochi ofav efer, I'm a dirtbag. Abraham, you're confusing me. Yechiel, you're sitting down for this. Says the Holy Kotzker Rebbe, why did God give me two hands? What? A person can manage with loyalani with one hand. Why did God give me two hands? Says the Heilige Kotzker Rebbe. In one hand, I have to hold what, Evelyn? B'shvili nivra olam. The whole universe was created what? For me. In the other hand, I have to hold Anochi ofav efer. And the trick in life is to know when to open up which hand. That's what life is all about. Which hand, Elisheva, I'm going to open up? That's the tightrope walk. Why should I go to yeshiva? Why should I do any mitzvahs? I'm a dirtbag. What I do doesn't matter. I'm a nobody, a gunisht. Sleep, become a beach bum, doesn't matter what I do. Then which hand do you open up? B'shvili nivra olam. Not from Moses. The whole universe was for my sake. But then when you study a lot of Torah, you do a lot of mitzvahs, have your name in lights, and you want to get a swelled head, which hand do you open up? Anochi oifer ve'efer. The Heilige Kotzker Rebbe, Rav Nachman. Which hand you're going to open up and when? You make the call. Ah, very interesting, right? So, Raschaya ben Avkulis, he just felt that he wasn't garnished, right? Don't be concerned what the UN will say about me, right? Don't let the UN and the EU define who we are. I'm a believer in myself and my greatness. Not what John Balkari says about me or the abomination. You have to shed that Golos mentality. We let the UN and the EU define who we are. That's copping out, unfortunately. That's the Golos mentality. Therefore, Tisha B'Av, we're not just mourning for them. It's an ongoing calamity. How do we get out of the Midbar mentality? You know, the Jews were stuck in the Midbar. They cried that night for nothing, and they had to wander 39 years. How do we get out of the Midbar mentality? How do we get out of the Golos mentality? We have great leaders that think they're very enlightened, but they have such a Golos mentality, Avraham, such a Golos mentality. Our defeatist policies, adopting the lying and the delusional narrative and language of our enemies, right? We're occupiers. We stole the PLO land. How can you steal and occupy your own land? That's right. Why do we repeat the lies of Abu Mamzer, Rabbi Kessler, our so-called leaders that think that they're free and liberated, enlightened? They can't shed their Golos mentality. The defeatist policy, the adopting the delusional narrative of what? Of the UN and the EU, who hate us. That's the Golos mentality. We have to break out. Therefore, Mashiach has not come.
So what is our responsibility?
What did the Maradlim say? We were like, in our eyes, like grasshoppers. Didn't they say that? We were like grasshoppers, right? In the giant, so the Vilna Gaon says that if they thought they're grasshoppers, if you see yourself as grasshoppers, that's how the UN will see you. They projected such a weak and timid image. Says the Vilna Gaon, what I project to others is how they see me. We must project strength in Amunah. We're not occupying anybody's land. We create our own reality. What's reality? Don't believe what the UN and the EU say about me. Ben Gurion said, I'll quote Ben Gurion, it doesn't matter what the Goy says, it only matters what the Jew does. We have to learn to believe in ourselves, in my greatness, not to be like Noach, Miktane Amunah. Noach had great Amunah in God, but he had no Amunah in what? In his own greatness. How great we are. We have to be proud of that. Not to have false humility. Like Reb Scharia, that's not the time to be what? Humble. We have to learn to believe in ourselves. I want to quote Ben Gurion again. In Eretz Yisrael, he said, to be a realist, you must believe in miracles. In 1949, Ben Gurion said, in Eretz Yisrael, to be a realist, you must believe in miracles. Yiddish, Chava?
Yes, I have a question.
Go ahead, only one?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Didn't the rabbis have a good reason to ignore Bar Kamsa? Didn't they already know he was an informer?
No, he wasn't an informer yet.
No, he was.
Not yet. First of all, they should have stopped the travesty. They saw this guy being humiliated. Leave the smorgasbord, right? Leave the smorgasbord. You'll come back to the pastrami and straighten this guy out. But no. They were too busy at the smorgasbord, and they let this travesty take place, and this guy became bitter and vengeful. Two wrongs don't make a right, but Avera gereret Avera, and he became a Moser. So this was the symptoms of the time where we had no self-respect for ourselves. We thought that we're nobody. We let the Romans define us. We let John Balkeri define us. We let the UN and the EU define us. So we're still stuck in the Golos mentality, even though our leaders, David, think that we're very enlightened. But they still have the Midbar Golos mentality, the defeatist policies, repeating the lies of Abu Mamzer. We got to break out. It's 3,328 years later, and we still mouth the lies of our enemies. Talk about occupied land, Hebron. Abu Mamzer Zayda lived in Hebron. Whose Zaydas lived in Hebron, Rabbi Kessler? Abu Mamzer Zaydas? Why we let them get away with the lies and the hallucinations, but we can't shake that Golos mentality. We have to stop looking at ourselves as what? As being grasshoppers. Like the Meraglim said, grasshoppers. We have to believe in ourselves, says the Rav Kook. We have to know that we create our own reality. The way we feel about ourselves, we project to others. We have to project strength and emunah in our cause, right? And finally speak up. We're not occupying anybody's land, right? Why can't we quote the first Rashi in Chumash? The first Rashi in Chumash, right? Why did Torah begin with Bereshit bara? Torah is not a book of what? History, it's a book of laws. So why begin with Bereshit bara? So the first Rashi says, the Chumash, that what? Koach masav higid la'amo. God wants to tell the strength to his people. That if the Goyim say, listim atem, the UN says you're occupying someone else's land, what are you supposed to say? God created the whole world. Look at Genesis. God created the whole world. He gave everyone their parcel. He gave us the promised land. We're not occupying anybody's land. So how come our politicians don't say that to President Obama? What? I mean, all the lies don't work. Why don't we say the truth? Quote the first Rashi. Obama says he's a Bible reading Christian, right? You have Rashi in English. Bible reading. He's a Muslim. I don't know. But John Balkeri, he's a Christian. Show him the Rashi, right? Koach. You have Rashi in English. Koach masav higid lamo. We're not occupying anybody's land. So who are we going to teach? The UN? We have to teach ourselves. But the kids in the Israeli high schools, they're brainwashed. They think we're occupying someone else's land. Teach them the first Rashi in Chumash. We're not occupying. Kodesh Baruch Hu gave us the land. Blame God. Blame God. That's a 5:30 shiur, by the way. Yeah. We have a double header today. I think it's called used to call it a double feature when I was growing up. At 5:30 we have another shiur. It's called, is it kosher to be angry with God? So blame God. Don't blame the Israeli army. We're not occupying anybody's land. Right, Rabbi Kessler? Hashem gave us the land. So why don't we speak like that, right? The Muslims, they quote their Quran, and they're not ashamed. So why can't our leaders quote our Torah? For a change. The lies don't work. Why don't you try the truth for a change? Right? Try the truth for a change.
Because they don't believe in it.
But they believe in the Bible.
Not really.
The Old Testament. The only Testament. Not the Old, the only Testament.
Rabbi Sprecher,
Only?
I heard a Republican, a guy,
Yeah.
they asked him about Israel's occupying the Palestinian land.
Right.
Israel's occupying her own land.
Ah, Baruch Hashem.
You can't occupy your own land.
How could you occupy your own land, right? Right?
You don't say it.
Nachon. Halavai, that what? So why are we fasting today? Why are we it's a fast. Why are we fasting today? Huh? We're fasting because of the Khurban, because they broke through the walls of Jerusalem. So the purpose of the fast is not to go on a diet. The Rambam says the purpose of the fast is what? To do tshuva. The purpose of the fast is, so why can't you do tshuva when you have a salami sandwich in your mouth? Why is tshuva tied up, Aviva, with fasting? Why? Why?
That's the only time we can think, when we're not.
When you're not manja? Because it distracts from what? Eating distracts from what? From doing tshuva, right? So you do tshuva, you have to focus what? On your neshama. So having a falafel, it distracts you. But the Kabbalistic reason, or what's the connection between every fast day is a day of tshuva, says Rambam. If you don't do tshuva today, you're wasting your time. Fasting is supposed to be the catalyst to what? The tshuva. So the Kabbalistic reason why is as follows. You're sitting down, Yehuda. The first sin a human being ever did was what? Was eat. God said, don't eat that tree. Remember, Shirley? For Adam and Chava, that tree was treifa. Don't eat that treifa tree. So the first sin a human being ever committed was eating. When God said, don't eat. So the Zohar says, if you want to do tshuva, you have to go back to the future. The granddaddy of all sin was what? Eating when God said don't eat. And all the other sins are only what? A result of that. If Adam would not have eaten when God said don't eat, no one would ever do any other sin. So you want to do tshuva, you have to go back to the what? The source. The source is what? Eating when God said don't eat. We all have Adam and Chava's DNA. DNA, divine natural ability, or divine natural association.
Okay.
And we all have a piece of Adam and Chava's neshama. So we were all there, right? We all have their DNA. So if you want to do tshuva, Yechiel, you got to go to the source of all sin, was what? Eating, and God said don't eat. And all other sin is only a result of that. Right? So the Zohar says, by not eating and doing tshuva, not eating, you're metakein, I don't want to say original sin. They stole that from us too. But the first sin was eating when God says don't eat, and all other sins is only a result of that. So by fasting, that's the catalyst for what? For doing tshuva. For doing tshuva. And Adam and Chava, right? We all come from Adam and Chava, right? Right? The whole universe comes from just two people, right? It's just amazing. Why? No one can say that my yichus is better than your yichus. How do you say yichus in English? Pedigree. Pedigree.
Yeah.
No one can say, I have better yichus than you, you know? No one can say, right?
We all share the same daddy.
We all said the same.
Daddy.
There was a famous story, the Satmar Rebbe, Rabbi Yaakov, the Satmar Rebbe used to go to Sharon Springs for the hot baths. He had trouble with arthritis. Saratoga Springs, thank you. And there, right, the Satmar Rebbe, and there he had a great sense of humor, by the way, the Satmar Rebbe, very sharp. There was a Yid who was not religious. He tried to stech the Rebbe, tried to get the Rebbe's goat. So the Rebbe asked him, "From wann stammt der Yid? Where do you come from?" So the non-frum Yid who stech the Rebbe said, "I come from Avraham Avinu." Good enough for you? So Satmar Rebbe says, "Yeah, but from which wife?" You come from Avraham Avinu. Which wife? Hagar? What's her name? Keturah? The Rebbe stecht them back. A very sharp sense of humor, the Satmar Rebbe, right? So we all come from Avraham Avinu. Hopefully we all come from Sari Imenu, but never some BDSers, lo yaleinu, and some J Streeters nebuch, who knows where they come from. Maybe Keturah, lo yaleinu, Keturah, or Hagar, right? Halavai not. But anyway, Kosh Baruch Hu should give us the strength to see the light and to do tshuva and to believe in ourselves. Remember that song? I'm a believer that no one can do it my way. No one can do it my way. I'm unique and special. And we have to shout it out and not to be ashamed of it. Hope to see you at 5:30. Thank you very much.